He was formerly the head of library technology at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. Bo-Hyun Kim is the associate director for library applications and knowledge systems at the University of Maryland, Baltimore Health Sciences and Human Service Library. And Andromeda Yelton is a writer, consultant, and a lead director at large. So with that, I know we're eager to get started with things. So I will start off with Marshall. Marshall, we're just going to get your mic unmuted and pass you the ball. Glad to have you with us today. Welcome, Marshall.
Well, thank you, Dan. I'm delighted to be here.
All right, over to you.
Okay, thanks. So I want to talk a few minutes about my view of the things that I saw at the ALA conference in Orlando. This conference is one of the most important ones that I go to every year, simply because it's the one conference where all of the vendors and the company representatives kind of at the highest levels are there, as well as the wonderful things that kind of go on in the program-related technology. I'm going to focus more on the technology and the exhibits. I know that Andromeda and Bo-Hyun are going to talk more about some things on the program. The only thing on the program that I'll probably mention in my talk is a session that I actually organized and sponsored by LEDA, is an Executive Perspectives program, where a panel where I had a select number of CEOs from some of the technology companies of interest have a nice, interesting conversation about technology trends and business trends. Had Sam Brooks from EBSCO, Sebastian from Index Data, Skep Pritchard from OCLC, Mati Shimtoff from Ex Libris, now ProQuest company, and Jim Tallman, the new CEO at Innovative. So that was a lively conversation that touched a lot of the business issues, a lot of which I'll probably talk about in my presentation now. So this is an incredibly interesting time in the realm of library technologies. And I kind of focus on the strategic kind of high dollar systems that libraries invest in, integrated library systems, resource management system, discovery systems, and the like. And things are happening in that space that are maybe a little bit different before, at least in more so. And what I mean by that is that in the past, all these technologies have been provided through kind of dedicated technology companies, where that company's main product portfolio are technology products. But increasingly, what I would call the top-level companies in not the library technology industry, but the library industry itself, are becoming involved in providing these technology products to libraries. So these large organizations, they're $1 billion in revenue or more often, and they have a kind of complex suite of products ranging from content, metadata, bibliographic services, and technology. So this is a little bit different than before. There are good aspects to this, and there are other aspects of it that I think that libraries need to watch carefully. The three that I would highlight in this category would be ProQuest, now that they've acquired Ex Libris. EBSCO is highly involved in discovery and now other kinds of technology. And Follett, more in the school library space, so they don't get talked about as much in this era, but especially with their acquisition of Baker and Taylor, they become of interest. So these are very large companies with incredibly large capacity for technology development as well as their other products. We'll start off by talking a bit about ProQuest. This is kind of big news, not quite as recent. The acquisition of ProQuest happened. ProQuest by Ex Libris happened at the end of 2015, but this is kind of the first major conference where they've been together. So this kind of reshapes a lot of things, and most of this has to do with technology for academic libraries. Ex Libris has been a major player in this space with their Alma platform. They continue to support and develop Aleph and Voyager, of course. But it means that Entota, as the resource management system that ProQuest had been developing as a competitor to ALMA obviously won't be developed. There may be parts of that brand that remain related to assessment and analytics, but the full-blown resource management system, library services platform as I call them, will not be developed. ALMA is the one of those that will be in the ProQuest Ex Libris family. Primo and Summon were competing discovery products. They will continue to be competing available products from that company, but they will be consolidated more in the back end, preserving the products themselves and their interfaces and their kind of distinct characters. So in a way, it consolidates products. In a way, it doesn't. Given that there are really only 4 index-based discovery products, now I might say there are 3.5, since Primo and Summon are from the same company and maybe are being fed off of the same index. And then, this is a pretty well-established family of products with ALMA, so now they're in the phase of spinning off new products based on that platform. The one that you could see at the conference was their Legato course reading list platform that uses ALMA technology to be able to integrate into things like course management systems to help instructors and teaching assistants put together reading lists for the classes. Interesting genre of software in itself. Ex Libris touts the openness of ALMA, and they announced at the conference that as of now, over 1 million API transactions are being fed into ALMA each day, which is pretty impressive. It shows that those libraries that are implementing that platform are not just using the delivered interfaces, but are programmatically accessing the data and functionality of ALMA. So that's pretty impressive. On the other kind of big news category, EBSCO Information Services has been well established as a content and database provider. EBSCO Discovery Services, their discovery platform, index-based discovery service. It is the leading one. It has the most installations relative to any of its competitors. So that's going very well. But EBSCO has not been in the library services platform business or integrated library service business other than providing support and partnerships with some of the existing companies and initiatives. But what's different now, and I wrote about this in American Libraries, so it's not brand new, but it's an initiative where they are going to help finance and support the creation of a new library services platform and bring together a lot of organizations and stakeholders to help accomplish that. What's new at the conference was the name of this initiative. When I wrote about it, it didn't have a name, and it's kind of awkward to write about an entity that doesn't have a name. But Folio is the name that was announced for this new open source library services platform that's being developed using the development efforts of Index Data, who's well established as a open source developer for library technologies, the Open Library Environment group that previously was working on their own open source system. Cersei Dynix was announced as an organization that will offer hosting and services related to it, and so forth. The side news on this project is that the Koale software will not be developed as planned. It will continue to be supported in its kind of print functionality that's already in production in 3 different libraries, SOAS in the UK, University of Chicago, and Lehigh. Open source is a big deal in the library technology space, especially in the integrated library systems platform. I list the ones here that were at the exhibit hall this year. COA is an integrated library system that's been available for quite a long time. Bywater Solutions provides hosting and services, development services for it in the United States. Even though it's not Equinox's main interest, they provide hosting and support for COA as well, and PTFS LibLime has a private version based on that software that they support. Equinox software supports Evergreen. Members of that company were part of the original team. They were represented. They're talking about their Sequoia platform, which kind of gives them some important advantages in the way that they host and provide services to the customers that use Evergreen. And a new name, fairly new, in the U.S. is TEN Technologies. They support an open source automation system called Invenio that was originally developed from the CERN labs in Switzerland. So that's kind of a not new software, but newly on the U.S. scene. It was implemented by Caltech recently as well. Follett is a major company. It's now a $3 billion company involved in a variety of things, ranging from library software from schools to running college bookstores, lots of different content packages and integration for schools. The big news in recent months was their acquisition of Baker & Taylor. What was interesting at the conference was how kind of low-key that was. There wasn't any Follett branding at the Baker & Taylor booth that I was able to see, and being a conference that doesn't emphasize school libraries as much, I guess, their presence was a bit lower key, though I think their role in the industry is increasingly important. Spend a couple of minutes talking about some of the main companies that are focused on library technologies and not part of these larger entities. Circe Dynix continues to be one of the more successful ILS companies. They are talking about their Blue Cloud suite of products in recent years, which is an interesting hybrid product where it uses a multi-tenant platform with web-based interfaces for new functionality and to replace some existing interfaces, though it's still tied to what you might call legacy Horizon and Symphony integrated library systems at a deeper level. They are very anxious to talk about their work with linked data. They're partners with Zafera to help libraries expose their collections as linked data, and so that they're more easily discovered by those who begin searching on the open web, so it kind of channels those users to the library's own collection. So that is a very interesting and important use of linked data. And then, as I mentioned, they were announced as one of the service providers for this new Folio project. So it's interesting to see a vendor of primarily proprietary software showing an interest in providing some services for open source. Innovative Interfaces, still a very large and successful company in the library space. The news there is that they now have a new Chief Executive Officer, Jim Tallman. He was on this panel that I mentioned. He's only been on board since February of 2016. Sorry about the typo in the slide. And they're continuing to do what they've been doing for the last few years, which is to kind of transition their customer base into their new Sierra platform. They have an important partnership with EBSCO to have a discovery interface that includes their Encore interface with the EDS index. And they're also working on deploying a new multi-tenant platform, mostly on the mobile side for now. They have a mobile list application and a mobile catalog that they're showing off for that. I could spend an hour talking about all the different ILS companies. They were all there. I just kind of want to make sure that nobody gets completely left out of at least the big ones. The Library Corporation continues to be very successful bibliographic services in addition to their software for public and school libraries. Had a nice conversation with Autographics talking about their Share It resource sharing system and a library loan system. They're also doing very well on their Verso ILS. Biblionics offers a nice web-based integrated library system that's extremely popular with small public libraries. And just to quickly mention that, ILSs weren't the only thing, this big software wasn't the only thing at the exhibit hall. There's lots of technology there. I was especially interested to see that the conference this year organized what they call a maker pavilion, where you see a lot of different kind of gadgets and technologies and smaller companies showing off some of the products and services and concepts that can facilitate a library as they think about developing their own makerspace, which is a real popular approach in all kinds of libraries as they seek to find new ways to engage their patrons with new technologies. HP had this kind of cool 3D scanning equipment and software. Raspberry Pi Foundation was there. Kaboom, they kind of talk about the importance of play in education. TeacherGeek, they had kind of a Erector set kind of components that can be used to help students kind of assemble and deal with mechanical and things like that. So I think I'm going to stop here. It was an interesting conference. Be interested to hear any questions as we go through the rest of the presentation. So over to the next speaker.
All right, thanks, Marshall. And with that, we will move over to Bo-Hyun. So Bo-Hyun, we're just going to pass you the ball.
All right.
All right. And did we pull up your slides there? Are your slides up?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you should see a little tab there that has your name on it.
Okay. Oh, gotcha. All right.
Okay. All right, over to you.
Okay. All right. Happy to be here. Thanks for to talk about some of the trends at the ALA annual conference. The major trend that I noticed at this year's ALA annual conference is the increasing interest in the social dimension of technology. So I wanted to talk about that in this wrap-up. So under the general heading of the social dimension of information technology, I want to include two big threads that I have observed. The first one is questioning the seeming neutrality of technology, and the second one is the open discussion about the gender inequality.
Bo-Hyun, sorry to interrupt you. We're getting a couple of requests for you to speak up a little bit.
Hold on, let me see if I can volume a little bit. Okay, is it any better?
Sounds better to me. It didn't really sound quiet to me in the first place, but I guess just try to project and speak through the microphone. And all right, thanks. And to everyone out there, you can just turn the volume up on your speakers.
All right, thank you. Sounds better. People say so. Okay, excellent. So two big threads under the heading of the social dimension of technology is questioning the seeming neutrality of technology. And another thread that I have observed is open discussion about the gender inequality in library IT. So I'm going to cover 4 programs that I think would represent this well. So there were a lot of programs discussing diversity and social justice issues in this year's ALA conference, but in the area of digital technology, 2 programs specifically examined the risk of naively trusting technology as a neutral and reliable means for either discovering or capturing the truth about social matters. So the first program was a talk given by Dr. Safiya Noble at UCLA, and her talk, as you see here on the slide, was titled Toward an Ethic of Social Justice in Information, which was the Leader President's program. So in that talk, Noble provided many examples of so-called aberrant search results in Google. She cited the UN Women Ed Series campaign in 2013, which used genuine Google search results to reveal the widespread prevalence of sexism and discrimination against women. So based upon searches that were conducted on March 9, 2013, the ad exposed the negative sentiments ranging from stereotyping as well as outright denial of women's rights. And Noble also pointed out many racist and sexist search results for Google. So for example, when people search for unprofessional hairstyle in Google Images, the top results show all Black women.
Bo-Hyun, I'm sorry, it's Dan. Sorry to interrupt you again, but your volume got a lot better. Now your audio is breaking up a little bit. I don't know if it's possible for you to disconnect and reconnect your audio connection there, but it sounds like it's getting kind of garbled. I'm really sorry.
That's okay. Okay, what should I do? Should I disconnect?
So if you go to, and this is audio, this is also some troubleshooting for everyone out there. If you go to communicate at the top of your screen and audio connection, that'll give you the option to just disconnect and reconnect. And yeah, to those of us in our audience, sorry, if you can just bear with us. Of course, one of the funny things about doing a tech webinar is that you sometimes run into tech problems, but we're doing the best we can here. And usually when we have these sorts of problems, the audio is clearer on the recording. So hopefully, even if things are a little jumbled right now, you'll do better with the recording. So, Bohuni, you still there?
Yes, how about now? Is it any better?
That sounds much better. So hopefully that'll be all. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, I'm really sorry to interrupt again. Go ahead.
So I talked about some aberrant search results in Google. So things like when people search for unprofessional hairstyle, it would show you the top results that all are Black women. And this is obviously a very racist and sexist worldview reflected in the search algorithm that we often take it to be neutral and unbiased. And when people Google for things like Black girls, Latina girls, or Asian girls in Google, often pornographic sites show up on top. And similarly, if you search for 3 Black teenagers in Google Images, you will get the results that are more like mugshots, right? But when you search for 3 white teenagers, you will get the results of happy-looking kids with a soccer ball, playing, smiling, things like that. And an online user found this recently, and it was reported by the mass media. And as you can imagine, it caused great uproar. So, and also if you search for professor style, for example, or doctor, all you see in the search results, and we usually don't go below second page or third page, all you see are really just the images of white men, which is a far cry, again, from the accurate representation of these professions today, as we all know. So these results all demonstrate how the dominant social stereotypes permeate and drive the Google search algorithm. So in her talk, Noble also pointed out how a criminal like Dylan Roof, who committed a hate crime in Charleston, searched for information about Black on white crime on the internet. And he was led to white supremacy websites because those websites showed up on the top of the search results, which he took as a sign of their accuracy. So he did not see how the information he obtained from these sites were severely biased and prejudiced in reality. If the top results of his search for Black on white crime were, say, FBI statistics that demonstrate that the crime rates are pretty much evenly distributed throughout different races of the criminals and their victims, he might have acted differently. But just like Dylan Roof, the majority of the public believes the search engine results are unbiased and accurate. And we know as information professionals that search engine results are driven to generate more advertising revenue than anything else, right? But even we forget often that as such, the search algorithms in commercial search engines like Google and Yahoo are far from neutral. They almost always reflect and represent also proliferate and reinforce socially dominant values and the interests of those with most capital and power. So this is definitely worrisome considering how much influence the commercial search engines and their search algorithms already exert on our daily lives. And we use them constantly, and we trust the search algorithms even over sometimes our own judgment, and we really question their accuracy and reliability. So Noel asked what we could do to the search engine interface to make these problematic dynamics more transparent and visible to the public. Now, I think this is not an easy question to answer, but I think it's definitely something worthwhile for all of us to think about. And here are some examples of her suggestions and recommendations for us. So as information professionals who are more aware of this problem and want to educate further the public about these issues, what we should do. So these are some of her recommendations. And I want to point out that the audio recording and the slides of her talk is already available on the ALA conference website. So if some of you have registered and have been at the conference but missed this talk, I recommend you to check that out. And the risk of naively trusting digital technology as a neutral and reliable means for either discovering or capturing truth about social matters was also emphasized in another program. So this was titled Black Lives Matter, Documenting a Digital Protest Movement. So in this program, 5 presenters shared their experience of archiving and documenting protests that broke out in Ferguson in 2014 and subsequently on the internet using the digital technology. So that entailed collecting and preserving tweets, Instagram posts, and the cited links in those social media data as the historic records of what has really happened and what was discussed in the space of public discourse that is relatively free from the traditional media companies that have existing biases and vested interests. So the 5 presenters discussed how critical an archivist, curator, and librarian's role can be in equitably representing, recording, and documenting the narrative of a social movement, and how sometimes the privacy concern and the preservation effort can conflict with each other. For example, in the case in which the police want to use people's faces captured in the social media photos as an evidence to arrest them, what kind of decisions should information professionals make in terms of digital preservation? So in my opinion, this program reflected librarians' growing interest in the way information is created, disseminated, and consumed by the public on the web, which is now even starting and sustaining a social movement like Black Lives Matter. So this program highlighted what kind of impact archivists, curators, and librarians can potentially have in revealing existing social issues, in creating an alternative narrative about these issues, and in working together with people in affected communities to advocate for social justice. I believe this is the result of more and more librarians starting to see how our work as information professionals, such as developing collections, creating records, and preserving documentations, is actually quite ideological and far from neutral or unbiased. I wasn't able to attend this program in person, but again, I was able to catch up through the audio recordings. I think it's really awesome that there's audio recording already available for some of these programs. And there is also a slide, and there are lots of tweets that came out of this program with the hashtag Black Lives Matter and ALAAC 16. So if you're interested in the intersection of technology, archiving and preservation, community outreach, and social justice issues, I really recommend you check the recording and the slides of this program. And this is one of the tweets that came out from this program. So that was one big thread that I saw at the ALA conference this year. And the second big thread that caught my attention was the open discussion about the gender inequality in library IT. So I attended 2 very excellent discussion programs. So one was the Women in Technology Leadership panel discussion, and the other was the new LIDA interest group, Women in Technology, inaugural meeting. So it is a well-known issue that librarianship is a heavily female profession. But in library IT, women still are a minority and face a lot of challenges in establishing themselves in leadership positions. So I think this panel discussion program wanted to address that issue. There are a lot of disadvantages, prejudices, and difficulties that women in IT in general have to deal with on a daily basis, which can be very exhausting and frustrating at the same time. So the Women in Library Technology Leadership Program created a much-needed opportunity for women in IT to openly share these struggles and discuss what we can do to make positive changes together. So there were 6 panelists in leadership positions in library IT at academic and public libraries. They shared their own experience of battling prejudices against women in IT. The stories that they shared resonated really well with the audience, and there were a lot of questions about how to deal with micro and macro aggressions towards women in IT. What are some of the common challenges, and how to make the library IT a less hostile field for women, and so on. And 6 panelists offered their insights and advice about how to find and work with allies, both female and male, how to support other women and mentor them to grow professionally, and how to create opportunities to move up for oneself when those opportunities are unevenly presented to men and women in reality, and how to be an authentic leader in the field of library IT. I don't think I can really do justice to how excellent the entire panel discussion program that consisted of a lot of questions and answers in the summary. So I really recommend it for all of you to listen to the recording if you can. The story that impressed me most during this program was what Michelle Frisk, who was one of the panelists, shared with the attendees. So she serves as the Chief Technology Officer of Chicago Public Library. And it happened to be that she, explained that actually the CTO of her city as well as the CTO of her county are both women. So at a meeting with them, she made a certain proposal to implement, and there were no challenges, no questioning, no doubt, and they just listened and then thought it was a great idea and gave the green light. And then she realized that, how rare it was in her long career in IT that her professional experience, knowledge, and authority in her field was accepted and trusted instead of constantly challenged and questioned even after many years of her success. So it just goes to show how it is so incredibly difficult for women in IT to be trusted, respected, and recognized as one of the leaders in the field when the field has such a skewed, uneven proportion of men and women. And this creates an environment that is unhealthy for both women and men. So we all need to work towards addressing this existing gender inequality issue and creating more equitable work environment and culture that do not penalize one gender over the other. And the last program that I wanted to mention that also shared this common theme is the new LIDA interest group, Women in Technology inaugural meeting. So it had a similar discussion, the distinction between soft technology and hard technology, how to gain trust and authority as female professionals in the library IT field, and how to negotiate equitable salaries and other work conditions, and some other topics. So it was also a really good meeting, and if you are interested, you can check the links that I put in the slide, and you can join the group. They have an email list, and I believe that they are actually planning to have some kind of program in the midwinter or next annual conference. So to sum up, the major trend that I noticed at this year's ALA annual conference was the increasing interest in the social dimension of information technology. And the two big threads in this trend that I observed were questioning the seeming neutrality of technology and open discussion about the gender inequality in library IT. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much, Bohyun. Sorry about the audio issues there. It sounded like they got sorted out towards the end there. But we will turn things over to Andromeda. Andromeda, how are you? Oh, just give us a second to get you unmuted. Hi, Andromeda.
I'm fine. I was just
about
to unmute myself. I'm glad you caught that.
All right.
So, yeah, I'm going to talk about the Top Tech Trends panel. I would also have loved to talk about Safiya Noble's workshop, or President's program, but Bohyun has already talked about that, and I reiterate that it would be great to catch up on that on the recording if you haven't, because it was a really great talk. But she's talked about it, so I'm going to talk about Top Tech Trends, which is always one of the big LIDA events each year. There's a whole bunch of other stuff I'm not going to talk about because I wasn't necessarily at those or because other presenters have already talked about that, but LIDA had a ton of awesome tech programs this year, and again, some of them you can catch up on through the conference recordings if you weren't there, and interest groups you can get involved in anytime, but I'm going to skim past those to Top Tech Trends. So this was our set of panelists. They were about half from public libraries, and then we had Lyrasis and a library consortium and an academic library represented, so it was a neat range of perspectives. And it was a really fun panel because the moderator, Maurice Coleman, has a great sense of humor and made it very conversational. So we got to hear a lot of people's perspectives on issues. Maurice opened by asking people what the next big trend was in one word. Definitions of one word varied, as you see. But the panelists had a big range of issues. So one was concepts, which is that the particular buttons or knobs or colors or what have you, or layouts that you see on a website or an app may change, but concepts like sending email remain constant across apps. And being able to teach patrons tech concepts so that they can keep understanding what's going on as interfaces change is really important. I heard real-time as a trend, so people wanting to know, is the book that I want available right now? Is the subject librarian I need to chat with available right now? People really want to know what's going on in their library in an up-to-the-minute way and what resources they can access right away. I heard about virtual reality. Some of that is out of reach for a lot of libraries right now, but some of it's not. You can get Google Cardboard for 20 bucks to play with. And it's not clear yet what the implications of virtual reality will be for libraries, but there's so much increase in it in games and healthcare and all sorts of places that it seems likely to show up in libraries as well. Balance. This was a trend that showed up throughout the panel, which was sort of the balance between security needs and other pressures on a library, like access needs. And security showed up a lot, so we'll talk about it even more. And then super easy app development. There's an increase in tools for letting people who have minimal programming knowledge build entire apps, things like Meteor or React. They require tech literacy, but not necessarily programming knowledge. So that's going to open up more and more opportunities for libraries to build technologies that they would not have the resources to build necessarily today. They also asked, what are some things that are maybe not trends or that you're just like tired of hearing about now? And answers included Yik Yak. Laura Costello, who's at an academic library, implores you, if you are at an academic library, do not look at Yik Yak, you will be sad. It's an anonymous, sort of geographically based chat thing, so people can talk about what's going on in a particular location anonymously, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of that at universities, and a lot of it is horrifying. Other trends people are totally over include librarians learning to code, the Internet of Things, which Nick Grove was saying is going to be huge in libraries later, but is overhyped in the short term. And 3D printers, which everyone is just collectively tired of on the panel, because they need a lot of babysitting, and because people tend to think that makerspaces and 3D printers are the same when they are not, which I'll talk about more later. And they were also asked, what technologies or trends would you just like to destroy if you could wave a magic wand? And they said bad catalogs, which unfortunately is a lot of catalogs. That was to thunderous audience applause, actually, because people are tired of having to explain bad interfaces to their patrons. People want to get rid of mobile versions of websites, just have one well-designed, responsive website that's going to look good on a lot of devices and stop going through the headaches of maintaining two different things. And ILS is without APIs, which Marshall touched on earlier, as APIs are a growing trend in ILSs and much overdue. All right. Security. As I mentioned, they talked about security a lot throughout this. So Maurice asked, what's on the horizon for information security? And Blake Carver, who is a systems administrator, said terror. He does not mean terrorism. He means everything is broken, everything is hackable, and your sysadmins are all having nightmares about it. So some good things on the security site, or on the security front, are, although the decrease in Flash and Java is difficulty for libraries in some respect because there's content that may become unavailable, it's great for security because Flash and Java are both full of security holes. It's good that patrons are more interested in learning about personal security, and librarians are more interested and able to teach about privacy technology, like two-factor authorization, like password vaults like LastPass, just good passwords and not reusing passwords, and sort of basic everyday personal security practices. Librarians are more and more able to teach those, and patrons are more interested in knowing about them. Basic IT best practices are still helpful even as things change. You know, have good backups and pay attention to who has passwords to systems, and don't share passwords insecurely, and revoke people's access when they stop working for you. Basic best practices are still going to be a good thing. And another good thing for your security is the involvement of leadership. If the director of your library says that it's a priority for people to know and use good security practices, they're more likely to do it. And if the leadership of your library says that IT should be reading contracts with vendors to make sure that the vendor software follows good IT best practices, they will. And if they don't, that probably won't happen. So those are some good things in security. Bad things are libraries and librarians with bad IT practices, like sharing all the passwords in an Excel sheet. Please never do that. Ransomware, so programs that hack your computer and then you get like a demand for money before they'll release your computer. Shodan.io, have a look at that. That is a search engine for the Internet of Things. So what it does is it scans for internet-connected devices that are not secured, and it lets you browse what kind of information you can see. And there are, you know, smart thermostats that are internet-connected but not secure. There are baby monitors that are internet-connected and not secure. And you can see, like, people's cribs on this website. This is why the future of security is terror. As net-connected devices expand, we introduce a lot of vulnerabilities. And they also mentioned the hacked Jeep. If you would like to never sleep at night, Google for that. It is possible to now hack cars and take control of them while they're operating. Good times. Let's see. Makerspaces came up as a possibility. It seems like people are not quite as excited about them as they were last year, but at the same time, they are much more common, and it's becoming easier to do makerspaces at a wide variety of libraries. So trends in makerspaces, are they happening in smaller libraries now? You don't have to be like a giant wealthy library. They're not just about 3D printers. There's all kinds of technologies that can be in a makerspace. They're not just for kids. Meridian in Idaho, Meridian Public Library, is working with its local business community to determine what kinds of technology needs do local businesses have, and how can they work together to help adults understand those. Carolyn Coulter from Rails mentioned CNC, computer numerical control, which is very sophisticated technology and incredibly valuable for adults to have. So your makerspaces can be about tech that's useful for adults, not just for kids. It doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. There's a lot of cheaper and cheaper stuff in makerspaces. It dovetails with active learning trends in colleges. They mentioned that your IT department has to be involved in setting up these things, but it's really your public service people who become the ongoing support experts, since they're the ones who are going to be working with these devices and working with patrons who are working with these devices. So it's important that they be experts in that. And they talked about working with the tech that your patrons bring into the building. And then a future, maybe hopeful trend that Lauren Comito mentioned is equity. Some places have makerspaces, but only the one big shiny one in their marquee branch, you know, in the central library. And she really wants to see them spread throughout neighborhoods, so you don't have to make that pilgrimage to the center of the city, but kids from all different socioeconomic classes can access this wherever they happen to be. And then Nick Grove said it's about making makers, not making spaces. He's done pop-up maker spaces and sort of book talks, which I guess I'll talk about in this outreach trend. Book talks for technology, right? You get a bunch of tech and you set it up out on a table, or you take a box of it into a school and you talk it up and you show people how to use it. It's about what you can do with the technology, not about having a really shiny and expensive space necessarily. So in terms of tech outreach, they talked about the book talks, but with tech, like I mentioned. They talked about having open mic nights where your students come and talk about what they're doing and what kind of help they might be able to use, and people can make connections through the library around technology projects. They talked about circulating technology. So New York Public Library circulates internet hotspots. You can talk with your local telecommunications company and you may be able to get some great deals from them. And then those hotspots have New York Public Library branding, and Lauren Comito saw them on the subway, and that's awesome for your library. Makey Makey, Raspberry Pi, and Sphero, which is a programmable robot that is apparently extremely durable, were all discussed as things you can circulate. Again, these are not necessarily expensive. A Raspberry Pi is like in the $30 range, I think, so you don't have to be super wealthy to do this. And then they sort of had a lively debate about device support. How wide a range of devices is it possible to support? You know, can you support everything your patrons come in with? Probably not. But do you need to support devices that are really common among your patrons, even if they're no longer cutting edge? Yeah, you actually do. There was not really a consensus as to how to determine the best policies for supporting devices. And that is what happened at Top Tech. So I guess, Dan, I'm going to turn it over to you in your question harvesting, and we can have some Q&A.
All right, thanks Andromeda, and thanks Bohun and Marshall for the wonderful presentations. There has been some good discussion going on in the audience while you all have been presenting. I actually don't see a ton in the way of questions, or some of the audience were answering other people's questions. So if you've got questions for our panelists, please type them into the chat space now, and we will do our best to relay them. So maybe I'll just do sort of a little pregnant pause here, and we'll see who's got questions. Okay, so first question. Did you see anything like the Wave that makes a flat screen TV interactive? Andromeda, I believe that's for you.
I didn't hear anything like that discussed. I also didn't get a chance to go to the exhibit floor, so Marshall might be more clear on whether tech like that was at ALA.
Marshall? Hi, Marshall, are you there?
I thought I was here.
Oh, yep, you're here.
Okay. Yeah, so I just switched to my phone. No, I didn't see that particular technology there. You know, I think it wasn't that shown in the Maker Pavilion that I saw, and nor do I necessarily remember seeing it at any of the other booths. So it's interesting, it's relevant, but you know, I'm not sure it was at the conference this year.
Okay, thanks, Marshall. We got another question. Did you have more information about how the open mic nights would work? Would this be an intergenerational program? Andromeda, I think that one's for you.
Yeah, I just dropped something brief in the chat, but this was from Laura Costello at Stony Brook University. So for them, it's primarily a student program, and of course, people are involved in research and projects because it's a university. So that seems to apply pretty naturally to any sort of school or university setting. Less sure how it would work in the public library environment.
Okay, and Anne asked about more information on the book talks with tech.
Yeah, so the Book Talks with Tech expert on the panel was Nick Grove from Meridian, Idaho, and basically he has a box of cool technology that he can take and demo in various places, much the same way that You might have a set of cool books that you take and talk up in a classroom or what have you. So it's the same idea that librarians do for like reader's advisory and getting kids excited about books. It's just people are taking and showing off tech instead of books.
Okay, Bo-Hyun, we've got a question for you. Can you tell us what are black box technologies? Bo-Hyun, you still there?
Okay, so my mic was muted, so I was thinking.
Okay.
Okay, so the black box technology, I think that showed up in Safiya Noble's talk. So that means that, like, you know, a certain system, like usually the search and indexing and discovery system, whose logic is sort of like closed behind the scenes, and you really don't know how it exactly functions or why search results are coming up on top, you know, compared to other things, right? So if you think of just like open source versus black box versus hybrid, that would explain it. So she was recommending, you know, to use and adopt systems in terms of search and discovery whose algorithms are open and you can probe into it and can find out what is actually problematic if you see aberrant results. So that's what she meant by black box system technology.
All right, Bo-Hyun, I think this is another good question for you since you've been involved in makerspaces with academic libraries. Susan asked, was there any emphasis about library design and furniture and technology for collaboration spaces in colleges?
Dan, could you repeat that one more time?
Sure. She asked, was there any emphasis on library design and furniture and technology for collaboration spaces in colleges?
Yes, I think that's actually a really big trend because we are actually working on right now on similar projects in my library. So because we are emphasizing so much more of, like, you know, collaborative learning, working together, you know, the emphasis on STEM education and the creativity and the push for entrepreneurship, which is represented by the maker movement and maker spaces, I think a lot of libraries are trying to accommodate that and build more of the space that is amenable to that. So like the manifestation of that are like, you know, more movable furnitures, everything on the wheel, you know, more flexible arrangement of the furniture pieces in the library, overall moving away from the fixed heavy furniture that can be used for one purpose to more of the pieces that can be used for different purposes, like the furniture pieces that you can move it around, arrange it differently. So I have gone to some, you know, furniture vendors, and they have a lot of products that are geared towards that purpose. So there was some representation of that, and I think actually that's another big trend. I just did not include that because I thought the other trend was bigger. But yes, definitely that's something really hot right now, and a lot of people are paying attention to. One program that I went to that is related to that question was a program about signage. So there was this really excellent program about how the libraries can design and implement the signage better in order to sort of like help people to, you know, find their ways, but also able to use the space in a better way and change the perception. I think that falls under the category of sort of library design, space design, and things like that. If you search signage, I think it was like, where is the restroom or something. I think that was the title of the talk. And the slides are available in the ALA conference website, and they have a lot of visual images that can really help people who are interested in the library space design. So I would recommend that if anyone is interested in that.
All right, thanks, Bo-Hyun. So I don't see any additional questions, but I may be missing something. So if I'm missing your question, please type it into the chat space. I know Lori asked, are the lectures that were referred to available to ALA member librarians who did not attend the conference? I know some are and some are not. to our presenters, to our panelists today, if you know of where some of the recordings are, if you could give us the links, that would be awesome. But I know not everything is available, but some things are. Anthony asked, did any of the presenters learn about what is coming down the pipe for ebooks? That's a good question. We didn't talk about ebooks. So anyone, Bohun, Marshall, Andromeda, any comments on ebooks?
Well, I would just chime in to say, you know, it's still a major deal. Overdrive, you know, has, you know, a lot of new updates to its library and technology for public libraries. You know, in the academic space, Northwest just rolled out its new eBook Central program that rolls together two previously separate ebook platforms. Lots of new business models for acquiring ebooks, different kinds of access on demand models is what ProQuest was talking about with theirs. You know, there were probably a dozen different vendors offering ebooks of one kind or another. An interesting one is Odello, a kind of Madrid-based company that's offering an ebook platform that's widely used and becoming more widely used in the U.S. So, you know, the emphasis is on better integration, better and easier to use interfaces, and kind of broader catalog content. And I think everybody's struggling with the business model of finding affordable ways for libraries to buy ebooks for their clientele.
All right, thanks, Marshall. And unfortunately, we are just about out of time. I know we didn't get to every question and discussion point, but to our panelists, Andromeda, Bohun, and Marshall, we want to thank you so much for the great discussion today. To our audience, thank you so much for attending. Great turnout today, great discussion. I hope everybody found the event really useful. And just a reminder, we do have our special offer up on the screen. The coupon code you see there will save you 10% off any ALA Editions or ALA TechSource e-learning event. So feel free to use that anytime in the next month. And with that, we're going to sign off for today. Hope we see you all at another webinar soon. Have a great day, and thanks so much, everyone.